I taped off the neck and polished it. I normally do that with a Dremel, but I was out of a little buffer pads, so I just used the jeweler's rouge and did it by hand. Should come out good. On to the next step. We've got a little of the Crimson Guitars restorative on it. It's starting to look a little more like a guitar neck. Onward. So I've just sanded this down to 220 grit all over, cover the back. But of course, obviously you can still feel the texture from the sandblasting, which is what you want. Because what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to do this type of finish. This is a sample that I had from a cutoff off of the ash. So I'm going to be trying to replicate that and make it darker red probably. So now that this is sanded, the process I used on my test was I'm going to go ahead and stain this red after I mix up a little deeper red than that one. Stain it all red. Then I'm going to put 2 or 3 coats of a sanding sealer over it. Okay. Then I will come back with a grain filler that's dyed black. Once that is in, I will obviously take most of that off while it's still wet, but make sure it gets into all these holes, and then come back and sand off the excess grain filler and the red that'll make sure I get rid of the reds there to just tell me at this point that I've gotten all the sanding sealer off, except in the areas where the black is. And then once that's sanded down again to 220, then I can restain it, and I should end up with that finish pretty much. Once I then I'll put more coats of sanding sealer and whatever I decide for finish. I haven't figured out what that's going to be yet. I don't know if I'm gonna, might not do sanding sealer, might do oil. I don't know yet. To be determined. But anyway, just so that you can see, I think I mentioned earlier this was killed. This ash tree was killed by emerald ash borers, and you can see some of the bug holes in here running along and some of them are pretty deep. Here's some on this side. Maybe you can see that they're a little bit deep. Okay, so I may take a couple of passes with the grain filler, black grain filler. I don't know. I haven't decided that yet either. Just played that by ear as I go. Anyway, go make some red stain first. Well, see if we can get it red. Now I've dyed up some grain filler that I'm going to use to fill the grain, dyed black. Put it around the surface, scrape as much of it off as I can with this scraper off the flat surfaces, so it's just in the grooves made by the sandblasting in the grain, and we'll see how it goes. Here basically is what I got after I added the grain filler and tried to scrape as much of it off as possible. You can still see texture and depth in the grain that was etched away by the sandblaster, but basically the next step will be to let this dry. Check it to make sure there aren't any little spots where I missed. Okay. Check the areas spots I missed. Refill those if I need to. Then basically sand the whole thing down until the red is gone. Remember, the red was just a witness for us at the beginning, although I am going to dye it red at the end. So that will take it back down to bare wood, except for the black inside the grain was etched away. And then we will restain it, sand it nice and smooth on the face grain parts, and put some kind of coating on it. Anyway, there you go. So here we go. Stained red with some water-based dye. I've decided I'm going to do a oil finish on it, so we're going to start with that. Of course, obviously this is going to take a while to soak in, so I'll keep working on it. So I got a couple of coats of oil on it so far, and now I've clamped on the neck. Doing the oil finish, I kind of like to put a couple coats on first before I glue in the neck. That way when I have any squeeze out, it doesn't have to worry about that absorbing into the guitar body. We'll let that set for a few hours or overnight or something like that, and then we will proceed with finishing the coating. I'm going to oil the back of the neck. The neck will get only a few coats of oil, kind of like another raw feeling. A few more coats on the headstock and many more coats on the body. Looks like today I'll be putting on, I'm gonna do all finish on the whole thing, including the neck. I got 2 coats on this already, nothing on the neck. We'll get the neck, probably no more than 2 or 3 coats on the neck, you know, like where that feels, and then probably a total of 8 or 9 coats on the body, and I'll be able to get that to a good semi-gloss or so. Let it hang here for a while, and I go for a couple hours. I got a heater in the garage. And we just sit for a couple hours, maybe come back another 5 minutes and wipe it down again just to make sure. The problem with this one is, you see these dark areas of the deep part of the grain, they're holding some of the oil. Can't get it all out, and it may ooze out and drip, and we don't want that. So we'll come back in 5 minutes and wipe it down again and see how it's doing. Anyway, seems to have cured now for almost a week. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to start it. Well, I started at 1,000 grit. I'm just going for a satin semi-gloss kind of finish. The dark grain areas will stay shiny because the oil is not going to get scratched in there. And that's fine, that's what I want, some contrast. And I'll work my way up with these Avalon pads to about 4,000. And that should get me where I want to go, same for the neck. I think that'll be good. So starting to put on the hardware, what I do, these holes get kind of gunked up. I've tried putting tape in and stuff, that doesn't always help with the oil and so forth. So what I do is I take a drill bit, the sides are 2 down, and that very carefully place it in there. And give it a few twirls, maybe a little side-to-side motion. Good to have sharp tools that make clean cuts. I guess my bleed on this guitar won't matter. Right color. Okay, I might have taken it out. We're back. I don't know what happened here. I've never ever cut myself before. And I'm not exactly sure about how well that's, I tested that and it's not necessarily making great contact. So I think what I will do is just take a round file and go right in, right here where this string's going to try to come through. And see if we can't catch a little of that for some grain reaction. It won't hurt. Just getting the hardware finished put on. Got to install this last pickup. I've used the standard workshop tool string to make sure everything is lined up where it needs to go. This is a combination of pickups I haven't tried before. It's Seymour Duncan 59 on the neck and JB in the bridge. Should be interesting. Starting to look like a guitar. Ready to do some more of the electronics. Putting on the jack plate now. Prove that I can do it. Actually, this is like my 15th guitar, so I've successfully wired a couple of things. Well, let's move that a little closer. Now it's time to check it out with my Marshall stack here. And we'll see what we got. Neck. Neck. Yes. Bridge, no. Bridge. Yes. Neck, no. Both. Looks like I got it wired. Finished installing the hardware pickups. Just got through finishing a truss rod cover there. Decided to go with a black Graphtec nut. Looks pretty good with this, I think. All the black. And there we go. Down to the Hipshot bridge. There's the challenge coin I said I was going to inlay into the bottom of the guitar there. And then of course we have the, you can see here how the grain is still subsurface there. Good on the back as well. From the top, there's more of that grain that's sandblasted out. I'm pretty happy with how that came out. And yeah, first time I've used black hardware too, so that's pretty cool. Looks good on that guitar, I think. Here we go, we'll get a picture up here like that. All the way down this way. Well, guitar number 15 out of the way. Time to think about another one, I suppose. Well, that's the end of my build. I will be putting together a final video for the competition. As required, and so it'll be kind of a montage of the whole thing. It's been a couple of weeks now since I actually finished the guitar, and it stays in tune. So it's got the JB in the neck, 59 in the bridge, and together. So, pretty good. Hope you enjoyed the build. Again, montage and the final video will be coming out hopefully in the not too distant future. And it was fun. If you have any interest in building guitars, hopefully at least one of these 300 or so amateur entries into the process, or non-invited I should say. Some of them are professionals, I'm sure. Give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, this one's going to Guitars for Vets, as is this one here, which I finished just before the competition. And this one is going to Guitars for Vets too. So Anyway, I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do next. Thanks. Appreciate it.